Good evening. My name is Maria Kazmi. I am also known as Brown Girl Interrupting, and I am your host of Pain to Power Leading with Love. This is a show where we really talk about this evolution of healing and what it is and what are the tools we need to gain our own healing. Today's show is brought to you in association with the I Rant Network. And if you are watching right now and you are live with us, thank you and welcome. Please make sure you hit that little link and hit the plus sign, the thumbs up, give us a like. And if you're watching our rebroadcast, make sure you like and you share a comment on just what's hitting you as you are listening to today's episode of Pain to Power. So I am Brown Girl Interrupting, like I said, and the interrupting has been pretty heavy in my life right now. But what I'm realizing in this journey of healing is that I have become so comfortable and confident in just speaking my mind, but it's not always easy for everyone else to take that truth from me. And so being an interrupter really requires some risk. And the risk that I'm learning is that not everyone else wants to hear the truth of what you might have to say to them or the reality of the narratives that are surrounding them. So you take a risk to lose relationships sometimes when you are interrupting the narratives that have been damaging. But there's a reason we do it, and the purpose is for healing. Because as we interrupt, we change the narratives that have been harming us for generations, or maybe in the generations to come after us. And the goal is that we are healing in community through learning and growing with the tools that we have. So continue to interrupt, be your interrupter. I will do the same, even at the risk of sometimes losing the people around you. And today I am super excited to think about this evolution of growing and learning and to have introduced to you one of my guests who boldly speaks her truth and is using music as her vehicle to heal herself and others. She is a singer, a songwriter, composer, and producer from the DMV. Born and raised in Woodbridge, Virginia, classically trained in opera and vocals at Westminster Choir College, she's now creating original alternative R&B as a transformational artist with a dynamic sound and a story to tell. Please welcome Rebekah Laur'en.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. I am so happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am amazing, I have to tell you that this is really it's great. It's an honor to have you on the show. I saw you for the first time at the Kennedy Center at the Millennial Stage, and it was really quite a treat for me because I brought my daughter. Who's 7 years old, whom you met.
Yeah.
And I mentioned her a lot in the show, but what I love is it was like this amazing moment because as you're performing and you're telling the story of your songs connected to, your performance, she leans over to me and she's like, Mama, you should have her on your show. I was like, okay, all right. And then from there, here we are. Mama has her on her show, and you are, gracing us with your presence and your story. And I'm super excited to have you here with us. And yeah, your show is amazing.
Thank you.
It was brilliant. It was the first Kennedy Center performance she got to see, and for that, I would say she got a great introduction to this beautiful melodic R&B opera mix of everything, but also these great stories that stood with the songs stood with her and stayed with her. So I always invite my guests on and ask them about what they believe pain to power means to them. So I'm wondering, there was obviously a lot that came in your songs in your journey of pain and healing. And how is that? And, what does that mean for you? Pain to power.
Oh man, pain to power means the sense of actual self growth, evolution of self, learning self, loving self, and just taking those situations that were there to at one time what felt like they were breaking you were really actually molding you. So it's like in Buddhism. Buddhism says take the poison as medicine. So you got to learn how to transform those experiences And that's how I see Pain to Power. It's just transforming something into something even more beautiful than what you even expected it to be. So yeah.
I love that. And Phil Montaigne says, I like that. That's for sure, right? That transformation of what's breaking you is actually building you, right? That's
Yes.
growing you. And that's a beautiful thing. But so to get to that place, and you mentioned Buddhism, and I know we're going to talk about faith a little bit more. You've been on a journey. So take us back a little bit to you're a DMV kid like me, but from Woodbridge,
Yeah.
Virginia. And I will say, my daughter wanted to ask me, I was like, what questions do you want to know? And she wants to know, what were you like when you were little? So I also want to know your
Oh
journey of
man.
like being Rebekah and just what it was just in your skin, in your life, like being you.
Well, I've always been expressive. I was always singing and dancing. I was the loud kid. I was always telling jokes. I loved to make people feel good. And my mom, she was always like, "You just a handful, girl." And but I just remember I had so much fun growing up as a kid in my household, and yeah, I was always that kid. You couldn't put my light out. I was that kid. And
Mm.
like I was always an entertainer. Like I said, I love to make people laugh. I love to make people smile. And yeah, I was lightning. If lightning was a person, that was me as a kid. I'll be
You
honest.
were lightning. That's awesome, and what a beautiful thing. And I think to say, to always have your light burning bright is
Yeah,
is not something a lot of little girls can say.
no, not
So,
at
what do
all.
you think it is for you that allowed you to have that space to always burn bright?
I come from a family of very strong women, and the women in my family, like my mother always said, like regardless of how old you get, regardless of where you are in life, regardless of what you're going through, never stop having a good time, never stop laughing, never stop smiling.
Mm.
And my mom, she talks of those things out of her own experience because she was like, there were times where I forgot to laugh, there were times where I forgot to smile, but she was like, but you got to keep laughing, you got to keep smiling, you can't take everything too serious. Life is serious enough. So
Mhm.
in that, my mother taught us to be bold and bright. Don't hide your light. Don't stomp yourself out just to make other people comfortable, which, as you'll learn later on, that gets tested for me actually. But I did. I held true to that, and for a time I did forget that, but I have held on true to that, and that has brought me back to many great places in art. It's taken me further than what I even realized
Mm.
in a lot of areas of the healing of self. So yeah.
That's that's really beautiful, though. I think, like again, it's Women's History Month, and to raise
Mhm.
up women, strong women in your life, and I think
Yeah.
I I really appreciate mothers who give those messages to their
Yeah.
daughters.
Yeah.
There's so much empowerment in that, and to have it from learned lessons is
Hmm.
that intentional effort to change narratives, right?
Yeah.
I did this and it hurt me, but I don't want it to hurt you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. And so, I mean, so let's obviously, from a little girl, you became a grown woman, right? Like life
Yeah.
changed, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point for you do you feel like that shifted?
The shift happened like around college for me. So when I was around like 18, 19, 20, 21, my mother and my stepfather, they were like very keen on me staying who I was. And they saw when I was in public school that I was kind of straying away a little bit. So they homeschooled me from seventh grade all the way through. And I was very much an individual, but in that I was kind of naive. So around college years, I learned a lot about life. And in learning about life, I learned about people, but I also learned at that time of my age in my life that I actually was more of a people pleaser than I had realized and more than I was wanting to admit.
Mm.
Um, and in that, it's funny because I've noticed this with a lot of artists, especially singers. We want to be loved and accepted, and in spite of how much love you actually have at home, there's just something in us, and it's kind of the I call it the curse of the gift in a weird way, where it kind of works
Mm.
against you but works for you at the same time. And I found myself dimming my light, trying to satisfy other people, wanting to be accepted in certain circles. And it's like I look back at it now, I'm like, why was I like, when you get a little older, you're like, why did I even care? But
Right.
it was a thing that I had to work through, because if I hadn't worked through that, it would have came up later on in a more important time in my life. and I would have gotten even more off track. But I went through just a downhill of bad relationships after college, not loving myself, not remembering I was loved, not remembering who I was, to the point where I was lost. And and all those heartbreaks and all of those broken friendships, it also was attached even to things of my childhood with my, my actual birth father. I didn't have a relationship with my birth father like I wanted to, and I realized that wanting of acceptance also came from him, that not having that. But I've also, had a blessing of being able to heal from that, start the process of that true healing, having a candid conversation with him. And just through all of that molding, as I've seen it now, I've learned more so how to take the lesson and not take the baggage with all of that stuff. So, it's like, oh man, I'm living life a little more now. I'm having a lot more fun now. But there was a time where like it was a decade of just like crash after crash after crash after crash, bad choice after bad choice. But it was really me choosing the same thing over and over and over again. That just wasn't for me. I was trying to be something in somebody that I wasn't. And I didn't know who I was for a time. I lost myself completely. And yeah, that was when I forgot to let my light shine. I forgot to be that little girl. And yeah, I did. I forgot for a time. So,
But I mean, I think that you've identified though exactly what it was that made you forget, right? Like you were able to really dig into that. So I mean, in that forgetting, what was the thing that allowed you to remember again? Like what was that moment for you where you started to shift back?
I was in a really bad relationship, and that's like the turning point for everybody, right? It's like, yeah, this is getting bad.
Always, right? Yeah.
And but I kept going back, and it would get worse and worse. And my mother was like in tears. She was like, "Why? Why? What did I do wrong?" Like she was like, "What is going on with my child?" And there was just one day I just it's just like the light bulb kind of came on. But the reason why it came on, I'm gonna tell you the reason why for real, for real. I was watching Tina Turner, her documentary, and she wrote a book called Happiness Becomes You. And in the book, she's talking about how we're in control of our lives. And everything that happens to us is a choice. Either you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. You are in control of every single thing that happens in your life. And the funny thing was, in that bad relationship I was in, that person would say things to me. Like, this is when you know, like, the universe is really talking to you for real, for real. This person would say, "You keep choosing this. You keep coming back to this. You're creating this." Now, they were in a very conscious state. And this is why I try to tell people, sometimes your hell is actually your heaven, in the sense of these are things set to help you. And if you take the lesson properly and heed the wisdom of that lesson, you will get to the point that you're supposed to get to. So in all of that, I started to see what was being said. I started to see me. I didn't see nobody else. I wasn't blaming nobody else for the mistreatment. I started to see me, and I realized I was choosing this. And I started to realize I'm operating out of a brokenness. I'm operating out of lack. So in Happiness Becomes Me, as you know, Tina Turner reinvented herself. Like, she's lived so many lives. Like,
Right.
and she
And
has
through a lot, through some
yeah,
intense things, right?
intense, and I'm like, man, this woman could recreate herself in this way. And it's like she started to take accountability of self. She didn't blame the abuser. She didn't blame the mother. She didn't blame any of these people. It was just back to herself. And that was what brought me back to myself. I'm not gonna lie, I read that book and then I got into Buddhism myself, and I started to really study the philosophy of Buddhism. And it resonated with me. It just aligned. It was something that just aligned. And I would chant every day. I even went to the temple. It's Nichiren in Silver Spring, Maryland. I went to their temple, and I actually joined. I became a Buddhist, and I chanted every day. And in that, just things started breaking off, and I started to see me. I came back to me, and it was this sense of like I felt like myself again, and I took back my power. I even had like spiritual advisors who were like really rooting for me, and they were helping me cleanse myself. You know how that is. You get your little deliverance, and and they were helping me to see myself, and they were like, you're not seeing yourself, like you're not seeing you. And so I had a very good support team. I even had a therapist. I went to therapy because I was like, this is bad, and
Therapy is for sure real and necessary.
it is. It's a help, and it just helps you see you when you're ready for it, though. When you're open for it. And I was ready. I was like, I don't want this life. This is not who I want to be. I don't even know who I am. And so I started to choose better for myself. And it was just like slow things, even from like what I was eating to what I was wearing and just what I wanted to feel, how I wanted to express myself. I'm like, I don't want to shove myself off anymore. I want to be who I am. So I freed myself. And, I thought it was funny because like, when you get a breakthrough, you're like, oh yeah, this is it. No. Then you get to the real problems. And in therapy, that's when I hit what the actual like root of everything really was. And it was just a number of different things. And yeah, it's been a process. Even now, like I find myself battling with my demons. Like I have a very beautiful life now, and I crack up because I'm just like, dang, I'm actually my biggest enemy a lot of times.
Mm.
And yeah, so that's where I am currently in my journey. It's beautiful. It gets better every day, but there are some days where I'm like, whew, okay, this is a little rough today. So yeah.
But I think like everything you just said was so important to anybody watching who is in that place, right? Like this
Mhm,
place of trying to rediscover self and what
mhm.
that means and what it entails. And the fact I think like you name it is that like, yeah, but that shit don't ever stop.
No,
Like
it
it's
doesn't.
a constant
It is.
evolution. I keep really trying to reframe it from the word journey to evolution because it's like
Yes.
it's just this constant shift
Constant.
and change, and you discover things about yourself right along the way.
Mhm,
And so as you're thinking about that, like and your journey itself,
mhm,
that's a lot of individual change. Now, you mentioned obviously you were in a bad relationship, right? So I'm
mhm.
imagining that shifted and changed. But were there other people in your life that struggled with you finding you?
Um, okay, so I've always been interesting of how can I say that? I've always been a loner in a sense. So I do know that I had some friends that had a problem when I pulled back, and I would try to explain like saying this is not about you. I got to go through a season by myself, and I'll be completely honest. I've been in a state of like I got my friends and stuff, but I'm not as connected with certain friends as I used to be, and a lot of people they took it very personal when I started to change. Like they were like you kind of talking a little different, you thinking a little different. I don't okay, this is a little new. And the funny thing for me is my background was also Christian. So like, for me to come to Buddhism, it was also kind of like some people were like, I don't know about that, but it was some did start to understand when I explained some things. And but I am thankful I didn't really have that issue really where it was like people were like, pushing back. It was more so when I started to shift the things and the people that didn't belong in my life, they just fell off like dead leaves on a
Mm.
tree. So it was, and I was growing. So when you're growing, you're not really paying attention to what's falling away. You're shifting. You're going through your seasons. You're going through the changes.
And the
And
leaves are falling, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you waiting for the new to come in. And there's a season where
Yeah.
you naked. You just butt naked. And you're like,
All exposed. That's it,
yeah,
right? And
mhm,
and it's
yeah,
it's it's that beauty of that. But yeah, like I think and that's it. Things will just and you kind of it sounds like you leaned into it. You leaned into all the shift
yeah.
and change. And I want to say salute. I see Tennessee Throw Therapy is in here. Salute to you, Ken. Welcome. And Phil Montaigne had a comment in here, I know as well. And just thinking about I'm my best friend and I'm my worst enemy, and
Yep,
no one else can hurt me unless I let them. Is you feeling me, Gucci
yeah,
Mane? Yes, yes.
yeah,
And I
that's
think,
real.
but that goes back to everything you've said, which
Mhm.
is you are in control, right? Like
You
it's
are.
literally it's all you, and that has been like, I mean, kudos to you because I think you're way younger than me. Like, and so I'm like, kudos to you for discovering that at an early age in life because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here as a 46-year-old woman and I think I'm just starting to come to these conclusions and understanding myself in my healing journey. So I think that's huge. But you mentioned that you grew up in Christian home. right?
Yeah.
And that's important to you. You
Yeah.
know that your faith has been important to you. But then how do you feel like, though, even though Buddhism is obviously starkly different in many
Yeah.
ways, like how did you find the commonality and the grounding to kind of connect both those parts of your faith and spirit together?
Oh, I like that. That's a good question. I've done so I'm one of those people, as they call it. I love theology. And I love, the concept of the study of like scriptures and also other people's religions and beliefs. I love to understand people and culture. And I'm gonna be honest, when I started to read what Buddhism teaches and I started to read what Christianity is, literally the same thing. It's the only difference is, despite the Messiah concept, and also it's just not religious. There's nobody holding a judgment over you. There's nobody. They're strictly about like, look, what you got go. That's about you. You work on you, focus on you, and who you become affects the world around you. So it makes you more self-aware because I'm dreaming of a better world around me. But in order for that world to be that, it has to be a reflection of me. So I have to be the mirror of what I want to see. And that was the only difference that I actually tuned more into, because they teach the same thing: love, peace, harmony, like everything of, community in the sense of a congregation, a church, a community. But at the same time, the only differences of the things that I clicked into more was there's no devil in that sense. You can be your own devil. There's devil. There are demons that are taught, but the whole thing of hell is a choice in which we can be in now by choice. And then heaven is also a choice that we can be in now. So it's not wait till after this life. It's not, this is now. It's all about the present. It's all about the universe. And even in that, I've come to have revelations even about things in scripture, in that sense that I'm like, oh, actually this kind of makes more sense now. Like you kind of, it's like a code. I don't know how to explain it of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I will say God talks to all of us in different ways, and he's come to every culture in its own way. And I just started to see God a lot different. I started to see God as which is, I actually got the symbol here on my tattoo, is upside down, but the symbol, which is, God is in all things. It's that cord that's in everything. Everything has, and I did. I took out the box of God and I started to see God in a different way. I started to even see him in me more, and he, she, whatever you related to. There is no gender with God. So yeah, that was what caught me with Buddhism. There are some similarities, but there's a difference. So
No, but I think the way you connected all those pieces is really important and powerful, because it takes again away from like the religiousness of it, but the spirituality of it and
yeah,
how it all is very much connected and aligned. I like that line you said, you took out the box of God. Like that's
yeah,
a powerful thing to think about, because sometimes that's what constricts us, right? And constriction is something that you do not you are really pushing away from.
yeah,
So I brought you on here because you are very much a singer, a songwriter, producer, and a performer, and music is life, right? Like,
yeah.
so tell me like about this music journey for you. What ignited it? So the other question Kaya, my daughter, wanted to ask is, have you always wanted to be a musician, or did that happen later in life?
I have always, like, I never forget. I was like 3 years old. The first performer I ever saw was Michael Jackson on TV. And I remember like being in like some Pampers talking about, oh, like, I'm serious. I kid you not. Like, my mom has like a whole thing. She's like, no, I remember. And I just, like, I would dress up like Michael Jackson and everything. Like, I just, from day one, since I could remember, that's all I wanted to do. Like, I know that's what I'm supposed to do. And it's just always been in me. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, so, but then, and then at what point did you like, this is what I want to do with my career? So it's one thing to always love
Yeah.
music, right? Like, and a lot of kids will say they have that, but you took it to the point of, now this is my life.
Yeah. So, every parent, when they see their child has a talent, they're like, well, let me put my child in music lessons. And my first music lesson actually was actually later on. I was 16 years old. And prior to that though, like, I would play by ear on the piano. But I learned how to play guitar in church and stuff. And that's another thing. Music was very spiritual to me. That was my first spiritual tool, as I would say. That was my spiritual connection. That was how I communicate. That's how I talked. That's how I felt. That's how I loved. That's how I learned. It was through music. But when I was 14, my sister had a friend who got me a computer and installed music software. And so I would just play around and stuff. But then when I was 16, my mother got me into piano, and then the piano teacher moved. And then I had my first voice lesson. That was what changed my life completely. The teacher heard me and she was like, I want you to try something else. So she started to teach me opera. She had me singing classical songs. And the first song, I never forget, the first song was Se Ben Crudele. And the reason why I never forget, because I played that, we played that over and over and over. I practiced that song so much. And then she put me into a competition. And I'm just going about the flow. I don't know what's going on, but I won first place in the competition. And then before I know it, I got the regionals. And I was like, I haven't even had like a voice lesson for a good solid 6 months. I'm like, I can do this. And opera at that time took my heart. My first real concert was Renee Fleming's. And I was like in love with opera. And my mom had a friend, Miss Sylvia, who was an opera singer. And she was like investing in me and teaching me things. And so from there, I auditioned for Westminster Choir College. And they took me in, of course, and it changed. There was a whole transformation. I can't tell you how much that really transformed me, but it was intimidating at the same time because I'm around all these kids that had all this major, like choral experience, and like kids that were like, I was in music theater in high school, and I'm like, I don't even know what note this is on the paper type thing, you know what I'm saying? And it was hard. It was very challenging. But that side of college, I mean, it was amazing. My skill set, like I had the opportunity to perform at Carnegie Hall. I've performed in like some major venues and have worked with some major conductors and even composers. So that changed my whole entire mentality about music. And I realized, no, like I can really do this. I can really turn this into something. And that training was like, you're trained to do this type thing. So that was what made me see like, no, I can take this further. And it was a lot of self-discipline, a lot of self-encouragement, a lot of pushing, a lot of, failures, and a lot of, triumphs at the same time. But it's, you can definitely do it. You just got to stay consistent with it and keep pushing it. But college was what changed it but that first voice lesson was really the thing that changed it.
That was it. That was it. Well, and I love that. And I was going to ask him, because I think not a lot of kids know about opera, but you already had that exposure prior to the lesson, or it came after the lesson?
I had exposure to it. So when I was little, like I said, I used to sing around the house. Like I wanted to be a singer. My grandma would always say, "She gonna be an opera singer," and like she said, "She gonna be opera." But my grandmother could sing, and my grandma, like I remember hearing her like sing hymns around the house, like. And just also just operas. Like I look back at it now, I'm like, dang, my grandma was really well versed, But she would say that, and I did. I was exposed to opera. My family was very much like into the arts, in that sense. But like nobody had took it to the level that I had took it to. And yeah, so opera. It was always funny when it was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. So yeah.
So, but then from opera and from Westminster College, then you took some different paths in music. Tell us about that.
So I transitioned. What happened was I got out. What happens when you get out of college? Reality hits, right? And I got out and I was auditioning, but I got tired of always auditioning for Porgy and Bess, and that was what seemed to always come to a lot of Black opera singers. And
so can you give me some background and everybody else in the audience, because I don't know a lot about Porgy and Bess. Okay. I'm not sure everybody knows. Tell us Porgy and Bess. What's the context of that?
So Porgy and Bess is pretty much an opera where it's about Black people, and it's kind of them having a hard time. It's a love story and then a heartbreak story. It's an opera. Opera always has tragedy. And some of the famous songs from Porgy and Bess is Summertime, summertime and the living is easy. That song is from Porgy and Bess. And it's an all-Black cast. It's the only all-Black cast. But it's actually, surprisingly, it's not composed by an African-American. It's actually composed by a Jewish man who was in New York. And you should look it up. It's a good opera. But a lot of times that's the only production that like really brings work for a lot of Black opera singers. And there's a lot of other, operas as well. Like you have, operas that a lot of blacks still get casted for. Like you have the arias of, the operas of, Le Noce di Figaro, The Marriage of Figaro,
Mm.
and Barbara Seville. Like there's amazing operas that few blacks get into, and but when you're starting out, a lot of it is very much that of Porgy and Bess, and I kind of got tired of that. And along with that, I also kind of got tired of singing songs that have already been sung by thousands and thousands and thousands of singers before me. And I respected the art. I loved the art because there's a spirituality about opera, but I wanted to create. I wanted to compose. I wanted to make something new. And that was what my intention and mission was. So I transitioned out of opera. I was like, I'm done with opera. And it was funny because my voice teacher, she was like, you're good at it, but you don't love it. And she knew it.
Mm.
And she was like, go she said, do your pop thing. That's what they call it. If you didn't sing opera, it's pop. She was like, go do your pop thing. And she said, find yourself though. And she knew it. She knew I had a lot of self-discovery to do. She said, go do that. And when you're ready, come back. But she already knew what I was going to do. She knew I wasn't coming back. And in that, I just kind of like started working on my craft even more as a producer, composer, songwriter. And it's grown to something that I'm very proud of, right? Like at the moment. And I see it growing even more. So yeah, that was what sparked, that's what motivated the transition. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
also kind of got tired of like hearing, a lot of the black opera singers, they were like, it's limited work, and then a lot of them felt like they didn't get seen. It was so many talented opera singers. So like my goal, like, yeah, I do the pop and the hip hop and R&B vibes, but my goal is truly to also go back to composing music, or also just bringing forth a platform for other new composers to compose new operas for, the black opera singers that don't get as much opportunity. So yeah.
I love that. That shifts that whole experience and what opportunities are out there,
Mhm.
as that bigger goal. So I mean, so then how within this time of you going to pop, as you had
Yeah.
said, your teacher says, right? I mean, but how did you discover your style of music? Like what helped you? Like who are the artists that have
Oh.
inspired that for you? And what did you play around with to get there?
So like I said, when I was 14, I had my sister had a friend who got me a computer with software, right? And that software was called Cakewalk. And at the time when I got the software, there was this song out called Laffy Taffy. Shake that Laffy Taffy.
Yeah,
And and when that song was out, he was like, yeah, they used this equipment. Like this was the software they used to make that song. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna make that. So, I was playing around on the computer and also the keyboard that I had. And I always continued, and then I upgraded to like a MacBook laptop. I think when I was like last year of high school. And I upgraded to a MacBook, and that's when I got into GarageBand, and the sounds were more advanced. I was able to move around in that a lot more, so I was able to manipulate the sound. Plus, I had took a piano lesson, so I was a little bit more, I thought I could
yeah.
do my thing, a little more. So I was able to create more of what I was hearing, and really just every day, like I would be nonstop, and I still do that now. Every day I'm creating, but I would be nonstop, and I would just work and work and figure out how to create certain sounds and styles. And even throughout college, I was still working on my own music. Like my friends from college can tell you how many times I called them to my dorm and be like, "Hey, I need you to come listen to this song right quick. I need you to listen to this," and they'd be like, "Oh, this is nice," And so that was just always nonstop. It was always there. And my
Yeah.
whole thing was, I was like, I'm gonna do pop and opera. And the teachers were like, you can't do both. But I found a way to make them work in my performances though. And it just was always every day, always working. And as my knowledge of music got better, as my skill sets got better, and learning music, learning how to compose the music, learning, the actual language of music, that was like a whole game changer for me. So the music got better as I started learning more and understanding what I was doing more. And that was how I perfected it. It never went away. I never put it down. It was always there. I just chose
Hmm.
it to be the main thing. So
That's awesome. And I mean, so have you brought back like any of those college the things that you were working on when you were younger? Do you bring any of that back into your current music that you do?
Some of the songs I just kind of like listen to now and I laugh. I'm like, dang, I come a long way. But there are actually a few songs that I actually was thinking about recreating. But I'm not really big on revisiting the past. A lot of times I'm like, oh, that was for that time. But there are songs actually online that you can you can hear that I still have, like, even on my page of, like, I did a mixtape one time and it was like just me actually singing over beats that were already used by like Drake and Rihanna, but my writing skills were like really on point at that time. They were getting better. And so like that stuff you can actually find on my YouTube page. But yeah, I'm all about creating where I'm at now. So I haven't brought any of that stuff back. Now you got me thinking.
There's always the opportunity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but so on top of the actual composing of the music itself, it's your lyrics, right? Like music is your healing through your lyrics, and I know that that's what caught us as the audience members, having never
Mm,
heard your music before. I mean, I checked out a little bit before coming, but like I didn't know, but the way you share your story of each song and
mm,
the who it is, what that story tells about you is really powerful. And that's how your music hits. It hits
mm.
in the storytelling. So tell me more like about for you how it's been this healing.
Man, so after college I went through the major transformation, as I call it. That was my rock bottom. Um and I actually have an album called Sober. Sober was birthed through that time. I went through a bad breakup. I was going through. I mean, what you call, when you get out of college, you don't have any money, so you you're broke, and you got people demanding stuff from you. You know, you're dealing with reality. You know, life, but it was a little heavier than usual because I was also facing betrayals from friends that I didn't expect to face betrayals from, and I didn't expect even the breakup to have gone the way that it went. It was a really bad time, and I just remember every day it was always something. It was constant. Like I felt like stuff was coming out of nowhere at me, and the only way I could get a relief was through my music. And I used to have this saying where I would say, "Love me like my music." And the reason of that was because when I was by myself, this makes me emotional. But when I was by myself and it was just pain that I felt, all I had was my music. That was all I had. Man, I was like, I ain't gonna cry. But
Say mom, but no, I.
that was all I had, you know. And my family, you know, they were funny because they would always try to, like, they were like, I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know what to do. And I was like, it's not for you to do anything. And it was just, my music was my lover, and it still is to this day. But it was like, it was my friend, it was my love, it was my God, it was my soul, and it still is. And but it was that time in my life, those last 2 years, like it was those 2 years after college, where it was just like all I had was that. And that was when the healing started. That was when I realized, like, man, if music can do this for me, what can it do for other people? And when I started to study the greats even more, like I studied Prince, I studied Michael Jackson, I studied, Ella Fitzgerald, I studied Rolling, like, the Rolling Stones and all of them,
Mhm.
and they all had these stories. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting is they were very much aware of the power of music, the frequency of music, the vibration of it, and how what we send out in the universe is what it does. And if you're not right, that's what goes out. And whatever that heart and intention is behind that music, that's what goes out. And I was like, I just want people to feel this true intention, this pure love, and this pureness in this music that I was feeling. And in that, I would say that that's where my pain started to compose. My pain
Mhm.
started to compose the melodies, they started to compose the music. And but then healing started to come in, and I started to see, like, music is a being. It's not something that you can touch or feel so people think, but it is real. And it is definitely something that can heal, it can touch, it can do whatever you want to do. It's energy, it's power, you know? And that was when all of that started. The real transformation began in my music. So yeah.
I love that. And I see the chat is blown up here with some more comments about, I mean, you just like, you laid it out so beautifully. of the power of music, but all the layers, right? That frequency, the
Yeah.
power that music has for you in your own composing and writing and singing, but also like how you're pushing that power out to others through your words. So in that, I mean, in like your first album, that first healing album, tell me, what was that experience after you completed it and like put it out there in the world?
So what's funny is there's actually two versions of that album, and this is the funny part of it. So the first the first version, I had a friend of mine actually produce it, but it wasn't me, and it didn't feel like me, but my words were me. And what it felt like was I was still in the process the first time I released it. It felt like I was still getting my words out. It felt like I was still trying to understand my pain. And but it was doing powerful things. So I'm not gonna lie. When I released it, I would go to shows and I would perform the music, and people would feel what I felt. And like there was a song I had that actually I'm thinking about re-releasing, but it was called "Hold On," and that song, like people would say, that's speaking to me right now because that's what I'm going through. So I remember when I released that, it did feel like this is what that this is why I've gone through this. This is what this is about. It's not just for me. We go through stuff, but it's not for us. It's for others, and that's what that music began to feel like for me. That was it. And then I reproduced it though years later, and I put the album back out, and that was more of this is me being confident in my skills, and this is
Mm-hmm.
me owning my power of what I actually have as a gift, and realizing God has really given me something, and remembering however that music was also where I first met God. So in that was me coming back to self when I also recreated that album and re-released it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, that was when I felt like I could close a chapter in my life. Was when I actually reproduced it and put it out. And
Mm-hmm.
I still perform songs from that album. Like "Human Beings" is one of them, and "Regardless" is on that one. And it's like a lot of different songs that I still perform to this day. So yeah, that's a core one there. So.
And that, I mean, the way you laid that out again, like that evolution of even
Mhm.
creation.
Mhm.
And I think I saw Phil Montana put in the chat, right? The idea of thank the creator for art, right? But that is like, it is when it's a piece of you. And I'm not a musician, but I'm a writer, and I create
Mhm.
writing. That's my art, right? So I feel like I totally understand when you said that difference of it's one thing to put something out, and it's like this first part of your healing, right? But then like
Yes.
you learn these other things, you understand these other things, and it's like you're in this different place, this new evolution period, right? New
Mhm.
iteration of self. And
Yeah.
there's so much power in that. So it's this journey of healing is like you're not
Mhm.
always in power throughout, but you get
Yeah.
there through the messiness, through the practice, through the trying different things out, right? Like all
Mhm.
of it, which is awesome. So with that, like, I mean, are there particular songs
Mm.
that like have been those pieces for you that really are you? Like they've captured you, they've captured that story. They're just those ones that are really like near and dear to your heart.
Man, I'll be honest. Every song that I put out and write, I try to have it be meaningful. It's very much a reflection of every process and every part and every area and every phase. But I will say, "Human Beings" is a song that really hits me in a very uh, how can I say this? It hits me in a space that is very vulnerable. Because it's a very honest, exposed piece. Because in the song, I'm just like talking to somebody, and I'm basically like, why you just can't get it right? Like, why you couldn't just see? But then the chorus goes to, "Let's be human beings and do what humans do. I'll hurt you and you'll hurt me too. That's just what humans do. But I love you, but my pain speaks louder than my love."
Mm,
And that song hits me because it actually humbles me, because there was a time where I was not always walking in love. I was walking in my pain. And I wasn't attracting the love that I wanted because I was walking in that pain. And then there were times where I was around good people, but I was in pain. And so my pain was stronger than my love. and I wasn't allowing myself to heal. So that song just, it's so human. It just brings us back to a very humble point of you're good and you're bad. It doesn't that's just the human experience, and
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. We're here to feel, we're here to experience it, we're here to bring forth something out of these experiences. And I'll say another song, it's a number of songs actually, but regardless is a good song to me too, because it's like the whole sense of I love you regardless. Now in the song, at the time, I was singing to somebody else, but as I've come to a different place in myself, I have learned that no, that song was actually for me. It's funny because I tell people all the time, just like my music speaks to you, the music speaks to me. That's how I know it's not me. That's how I know that that's coming from a higher power. If the
Mm.
music is not speaking to me and if it's not still unfolding for me years later, there was no real message in it, but it's speaking to me too. So, and Decentra is a good one as well. The whole concept of a flower, a Decentra grows out of a volcano in Japan. That's not even possible. The beauty of that. It's like we go through so much ugly stuff in this world and in this realm, and somehow we produce something beautiful from all of this. So that's that's the purpose. That's the point. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I keep
Mhm.
capturing. I want to capture that in my music. So you'll go through many emotions. Like I've people have come up to me in my shows. They're like, I was crying, I was laughing, and I was twerking, and I was feeling good. And I've had people tell me that. And I'm like, that's the human experience. We have these emotions for a reason. We are to feel. Like that's the point here. I want y'all to feel, and yeah, that's the beautiful thing about the music. But there's a lot of my songs make me feel that way. So you just gotta listen to it. That's all. I can go on and on. So
No, I mean, but and everything you said is accurate and true. And I will say, from going to one of your performances, right? Like it really is like there's you feel it. You feel the words, you feel the soul of it, you feel the spirit of it, and it's the vibrations all through the room, right? The way the energy flows.
yeah,
And I love that again, like you're so honest about the messiness of being human, right?
okay,
It's not this prepackaged idea of perfection or prepackaged even pain, right? Like pain has its complexities, like all of it
yeah,
has its complexities, which is so big, right?
yeah, it is.
So, and you talked about the flower that grows in the volcano, but there's also you referenced the lotus flower a
Yeah.
lot, and that's something important to you. Tell me a little bit about what that means for you.
So the lotus flower is actually one of the things that I gravitated to in Buddhism, and that's the Lotus Sutra, which the sutra is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And the thing is of all of that is basically everything is one in the sense. And the lotus flower, the process of a lotus flower though, what makes it so beautiful is it has to go through mud and has to go through water. It has to go through a lot before it comes to the surface and becomes this beautiful thing that we see just floating. It looks so effortless, but there's a whole process that is happening before it gets to that point. And I felt like I went through a lot of mud and a lot of murky water to get to a point of clarity. And it's not to say that you're not going to have storms and that there's not going to be, but sometimes there is a point where you get over the hump and the worst literally is behind you. And our thoughts create what we want. That's the beautiful thing about things. And I'll say in the sense of the lotus, I've gone through the mud and stuff, and I think now I'm starting to hit the surface of a lot of things. But that's why I relate to it. It's that sense of just pushing through a lot of the gulk in life, and holding on to the beauty of things in life. So yeah.
Mhm. So what are the like when you think people come to your concerts and they hear your music, what do you want them to take away for themselves?
Um, I want them to take away a sense of self awareness, a sense of hope, a sense of joy, um, but a sense of soberness. That was also why I named my album Sober. I had went through so much in life and it sobered me up. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about when you get that sober point. But there's like a peace with that. And that's really what I want people to leave with, is a sense of peace, a sense of self-awareness, and a sense of everything is actually going to be okay. Things do get better. And it's so easy to get distracted by the temporary things that happen that you miss the big picture. And I really do. I always try to leave my concerts with a nice, high, so people feel like, oh yeah, man, we just went through a journey, and I want people to feel the sense of life. Life, my music, I want it to reflect life, and I want people to feel like they're heard and seen and reflected and understood. And that's why I think I like to talk about so much complexity in my music. So yeah.
Well, I think you definitely hit the mark. I know from the first time seeing you on stage, definitely. And I recommend everyone please go to Spotify and Apple and all the places you can get music, and make sure you go and listen to all of the past albums as well as some of your singles. I know you just had a recent single come out. Tell us about that one and
Oh
and
man.
the story behind it.
So Breaking Two is my single that I have out. I released that on Valentine's Day because it's a nice love ballad, but it's a lot of feeling in that. And I'm in a very good place and space in my life. I have a good partnership and just good people all around me right now, and good family, And the thing is, it's about vulnerability. And I used to be afraid to be vulnerable. I didn't. I'd go off into what I call my secret garden, and like I'd be here, but I wouldn't really be here. So I would kind of be on guard. And when I was going through a lot of my, the beginning process of my healing, a lot of it was like, you got to open your heart back up. Like you closed your heart up. And in that, I started to like really open up. But when I got into a healthy sense of myself, a relationship with myself first, and then got into a healthy relationship, I was with somebody who they just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's literally like, it's like water that's constantly pressing against a rock. And that's consistent, but it's effortless at the same time. And I've just opened up so much. And I feel safe. I feel good in this space. And so Breaking Two is about somebody just loving you correctly, to the point where you have no choice but to break, no matter how
Mm.
hard the exterior. You have no choice but to break right open and to evolve into that beautiful thing of that stream called love. And that's what Breaking Two is about. So,
Oh, love that. And I think you said it, right? When you've been through pain, when you've had distrust, when you have
yeah.
gone through things in relationships, the hardest thing, and I'm right now in that space, is to trust and be vulnerable again,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a really, really hard thing. I mean, so you talked about your own self-awareness, but is there other things that helped you to get through to that vulnerability in yourself?
Yeah. Having it, I'm going to be honest, we are not islands. A lot of work is self work, but we're not to be here alone. So when you have other people who are also doing the work, who have self-awareness and who also understand spiritually, but also who don't understand, but yet have the gift of love, they help you. And
Mm.
I'm not gonna lie, I got to a lot of self-revelations by having a very patient partner and a loving partner who, when I was in my complex moments of not understanding something and I was in a state of pain, they gently, kindly, yet sternly took me out of that space and reminded me I'm in a safe space. So you have to really set up your environments. If you don't have those type of people, you have to become that for yourself. And if you can't become that for yourself, set yourself up in a spiritual, energetic space of people who are helping and support you in that space. So it is a community. I'm not gonna lie. It's a community of people that have helped me get here. I have, mentors, spiritual mentors. I have family. Like my mother used to be a minister, so my mom's just like she's always like, praying for me spiritually, always looking out for me. But just that community, that's really does, like, it helps. I can't explain of how
Mhm.
important that really is in the process. So yeah.
That's big. That's important, right? It is who you surround yourself with. So it's not just any
Yes.
community. It is
Not
who
just
you
any
surround yourself
community.
with for certain, right?
Yeah.
Feeding your soul is important, and recognizing and being discerning about who that's going to be
Oh yeah. Like
for
one thing
sure.
I will say, I used to be very, very guarded, and I knew you already know how that is. You're very guarded. You got trust issues, but I learned my discernment was fine tuned in all of the stuff I went through. I learned from my mom had a friend, and she told me there are 5 bad people in the world, and once you learn who they are, you will learn how to forever avoid them. And I was like, what that mean? I was like 16 or 17 when she told me.
Yeah.
But as I lived life, I realized I encountered the same 5 people consistently. And I learned their traits. I learned their ways to the point that if I see a sign of that, I know what that person is about. I can't be fooled by it anymore. You know?
Right.
So I have learned to take the lessons. I learned how to fine tune my discernment. I no longer sit there and say, oh, well, that's a red flag, but I'm a paint it green. I'm not doing that no more. You know what I'm saying?
Put the
Like,
color glasses on.
yeah,
Pretty flags.
everything's rose colored. No, I'm not doing that no more. When I see what something is, I call it out. I stick to my truth. I stick to what it is. I know what this is.
I love it.
And a lot of times, whenever I see that, I'll be like, oh, there go the second red flag. I'm out. So you got to pay attention. These things have happened to you for a reason, to learn these spirits. These are spiritual lessons. Once you learn who those 5 people are and those traits are, you will forever avoid the chaos.
So now I'm curious, who are the 5? What are the 5 people that we're supposed to be looking out for?
5 people. Well, okay. So one thing, don't ever deal with people who make you question yourself in the sense of they hit your confidence. Now, if you talk about it, everybody, that's a narcissist. Now, we all talk about narcissists, but it is like a pandemic of narcissists out here. I don't know what's going on, but always stay true to yourself, but still be open to critique of self from your friends. But you'll know when that's coming from love, because it won't feel like an attack. It won't feel like an attack. But then sometimes it's also not comfortable either. So you gotta learn how to discern how it feels, But people who, they're not exactly honest, and you can see who are not honest because they're not honest with themselves. You got to see how people are with themselves, with their family, and with their close friends. And I have definitely learned, you watch how people are with their mothers and their fathers. You watch how they are with their siblings.
For certain. Right?
Yes.
That says a lot.
Gotta watch it, because
Always.
I have seen it, and I have ignored a lot of times a lot of those signs, and I've been like, dang, what? But just watch people. Don't be so quick to jump in with people. Just watch. If you really watch and don't make an excuse for people, you will see what it is. As Maya Angelou say, believe someone. What is it? Believe them when they show
you who they are, right?
Yes, who they are.
Show you who they are. Believe them when they do, right? That's
yes. So a lot of us already know the truth about people and things. We just ignore it. So
we do. But I think it comes back to everything you've said in this, which is that you. When you know you don't ignore the things, because, and I have noticed this in my healing journey as well, as it's like, you don't put up with stuff. And I opened up with this, right? Like, you're interrupting. Like, you're like, nah, I'm not going to sing that one. Like, that's not working for me. And it might risk the fact of you being in my life, but I know what I need right now. And if you can't bring that, if you can't create that, then there's no need for you to be there, right? Like, that's important. Those are your choices you have to make, right? But that comes from self-awareness, not just self-love. I think people get stuck in the self-love, but don't get to self-awareness.
People misinterpretation of love in general. It's a lot of people are mixing up words of things. Like, self-awareness is, that's the bigger picture, to be quite honest. Because that's a whole sense of consciousness. When you really become fully self-aware, you avoid a lot of stuff too. And you find yourself hitting a conscious state in the subconscious, and you're able to like redirect things in a way that's a whole nother conversation. But the thing is like, self-awareness is the real power. And a lot of people are not self-aware.
That's the truth. And yes, and I would say that goes to our generations right now. And no matter whose generation it is, I'll be honest, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
Like self-awareness is something that we are in a struggle of society with right
Yeah.
now. And there's so much, right? I think social media, immediate
Oh yeah.
gratification, like the number of things, like the ease of access to things that are just that we required work to get before,
Yeah.
right? Like even relationships and people, right? It required effort and time. And when things are immediate, there is no self-awareness because there's
Yeah.
no time for it. There's
No.
no need for it, right?
Yeah.
I
That,
just
that's
jump
right.
to the next thing. I don't need to know myself.
Exactly. And all you're
So
doing, you're
this
just
has
adding on more and
been
more.
right, right. Just skip it to the next, right? But I
Yeah.
think thank you so much. Like I love everything you've shared, and again, like your music has opened up this ability um, to heal in all the complexities of what that means, and is transforming just the experience of listening to music. You got to go check her out. And again, I mean, we didn't even hit how much like just the dynamic of the music, the way that you tie in your opera skills with your R&B, with the alternative, like all of it is just amazing. Go and check Rebekah out. You can see all of her links below here on this YouTube channel. And I think we'll have it in the chat as well. Go check out her website. Any upcoming shows we should know about or upcoming things
Actually,
coming up?
I do have a show coming up in New York next Saturday. It's actually a so far show, so you'd have to actually contact me directly for more of that information. But I've just really been focused on my album coming out this summer, so I'm excited about that. That's a whole different vibe.
Oh,
So that
okay.
I'm really excited about that.
And when's it drop?
So June is the month that I have. June 22nd is the date that is pretty much on the calendar.
All
I'm like
right,
not
all
talking
right.
too much about it until like April. April is when I'm officially like, this is it.
We,
So
we got it, but we're keeping an eye out. And please go and follow her on Instagram, on TikTok, Facebook too.
yes, yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm
All the
everywhere.
below RL Music with a K. Yes, and please make sure that you are following me as well. I am a writer. I've actually got a new post coming out this week called "I Want to Dance with Somebody." So
Oh,
it's all
okay.
about my hand dancing journey and healing and learning from it. So please make sure you go follow me. Yeah, Rebekah, please check out my blog and my writing. Make sure that if you haven't done it yet, hit the like button. Just hit the little thumb. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. We are here every Sunday at 9 p.m. for new guests and new stories of taking pain and turning it into power to get to our peace and healing. Please make sure that you are joining us, that you are following us, and go if you have a Roku TV or a Roku stick. I don't know if you do, Rebekah, but we are on Roku. If you go to the
Oh,
channels and go to the I Rant channel, you will find all of the iRant network channels and different stations, as well as BGI stations. So you can check out some of my old episodes as well as new episodes. And yeah, join us.
yes, for sure.
For sure, right? I'm so excited. This is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
story
you.
and your
Thank you.
music. And I'm sure we're going to go out with some amazing music in a few moments because Mr. M, and thank you to Logic, Mr. M, the man behind the scenes as my producer. And thank you to our iRant network for tuning in and all of our supporters for tuning in and joining us on this another episode of Pain to Power. Please join me again every Sunday at 9 p.m. on Brown Girl Interrupting on YouTube, on iRant Network on YouTube, and on the Ranters Union on YouTube. Peace, love, and light.
I see it in your eyes. You need a place to hide. I'll be your hiding place. Safety is what you'll find. Lay your head on my chest, rest in my arms. No need to fear, my dear. You're now on sacred ground. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're now on sacred ground. Yeah, 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 yeah. A place just for you, only for you. There's no judgment, only love for you. Tell me your secrets, I'll hold them for you. Baby, I'm your vault, locked and sealed for you. Baby, I see the real you. Spread your wings, let me see your colors. I wanna know every inch of you, what they don't know and what they don't see. Oh, I'll turn your pain into sweet melodies. Ooh, I'll turn them so sweet indeed. You'll forget what you've gone through and what you're going through. Baby, just breathe. You're now on sacred ground. Oh, you're on sacred ground. Yeah, yeah. You're safe with me. You're safe with me. Sacred ground, you're now on sacred ground. Oh. You're safe with me. Yes, you are. You're now on sacred ground.
My world has slowly crumbled around me countless times, and every time I rebuild with the pieces I've been given to birth something so transformational and beautiful that no one else knew might exist before it was shown to them. These moments tend to coincide within my romantic path. The universe has been telling me to focus on the revolution and not romance. It has over time given me the tools, resilience, and light to turn my pain into power. And only now do I see that the key to this always resided in the love and knowing I had in myself, not from the external sources of family or men. The message I have been avoiding might be that my time in this world I had existed in was not to receive love, but to put it out there for others to see, feel, and heal through. Revolution before romance moves pain into power.